Federico is a scientific educator, social activist, computer scientist, blogger, media expert, and aspiring filmmaker. He won a scholarship, founded a non-profit volunteer association, worked in a media company as project manager, media strategist, developer, screenwriter, and director. Then he got a degree in computer science, won an international competition for blogging, and was sent to the COP15 in Copenhagen to cover the events on the conference on climate. In 2009, he founded the Zeitgeist Movement Italy. In 2011, he started writing his first book, Robots Will Steal Your Job, But That's Okay: How to Survive the Economic Collapse and Be Happy, which is available from Amazon, or you can download it for free from his website. In 2012, he won another scholarship, this time for graduate studies program at Singularity University, NASA Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley. He is planning to publish a sci-fi novel this year called A Tale of Two Futures, which tells the story of an average day in two very different futures, one where things have gone terribly wrong and the other where things have gone amazingly right. So, hi Federico.
Hello.
I think lots of people have difficulty trying to comprehend that within the next 5 to 20 years we will advance so much that robots will be doing their jobs. Can you think of a technology that exists right now that has already taken the place of people's jobs that most people don't know about?
I'd say there are many. One of them is, well, I'll give two examples. One is lawyers. Lots of people think lawyers are, the people in court saying, Your Honor. That's a very tiny percentage of lawyers. Most lawyers are just doing paperwork and, they're doing very repetitive tasks.
Okay.
And so what you have are agencies with maybe 50 lawyers inside, or 100 lawyers, or 1,000 lawyers, and they receive lots and lots of cases, and most of them are just bureaucracy. And over the past 10 years, but really in the last 2 or 3, an agency with 30 lawyers replaced 20 of them. Now it's just 10, and the rest is done by software, because it's just really, if you think of the code, it's called the civil code because it's a code, right? So a code, a computer manages that really well, because you've got thousands of laws and they're all interconnected, and it's just really an algorithm. So that's one that very few people know about. Another is warehouse management. Right now, Kiva was acquired by Amazon for almost $800 million.
What's Kiva?
Kiva System is a company that was acquired last year by Amazon.com for $775 million.
Okay.
And this company builds intelligent robots that basically they pick up things and they put them in the right place, and then they ship, and they do everything inside the warehouse. So where you need 100 people working, now it's just one guy with a dashboard, and they click things around, and everything else is done by robots. And there are hundreds of examples of things like these that are really opaque to the public, but people don't really know about. And the reason is, I think, because Hollywood and cartoon characters, they've given us the impression that automation equals a human-like robot, with arms and legs moving around, and that's really hard to do. And they say, where's my robot? So unless they have that, they think automation is not happening, but automation is really pervasive at all levels, and the housemaid robot will be the last thing to come, right?
Okay.
Thousands of other jobs will be automated before the housemaid, which is really hard to do.
Technology is progressing exponentially. Can you give an example of a technology that has advanced exponentially to help anyone watching get a feeling for what exponential really means?
Yeah, this one. That camera.
Yeah.
And the device you guys are using to watch this video, that thing used to cost, let's say in the 1950s, it was about 1 million times less powerful and 1 million times more expensive. Inside there is a processor, there is a hard drive, there is integrated circuit. The whole IT industry is based on the fact that technology advances exponentially.
Okay.
So you've got something like a billion-fold increase, a 10 billion-fold increase, or a trillion-fold increase in less than 40 years.
Yeah.
That is just mind-blowing. To give an example, if you were to have an exponential growth of something just simple as a grain of sand or a grain of rice, at the 64th doubling, there would be a heap of grain taller than Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And technology roughly doubles every 2 years. Actually, roughly doubled every 2 years. Now, certain technologies double every year or even every 8 months, like DNA sequencing.
Right.
So when they started the first DNA sequencing, it took them 10 years, cost $10 billion, and they got to 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So they said, oh, it's going to take, 100 years. And people like Ray Kurzweil and others who actually understood Exponential said, no, we're right on schedule.
Mm.
It took 10 years to get to 1%, but we doubled every year. So now, 10 more years, and we're done. And now it takes about an hour. And a device to do a DNA sequencing now costs less than $1,000. So the first DNA sequencing happened 20 years ago and cost 10 billion, and now it took 20 years, and now it takes 2 hours and costs $2,000. So you see, it's orders of magnitudes in just a short amount of time.
Some people are stuck on the idea that it is good that humans are forced to work, and that if they didn't, they would simply lie around drinking beer and getting fat. What would you do if you didn't have to work to survive?
What I'm doing now.
Okay.
So my goal is to have the biggest positive impact that I can. And that's what I'm doing. I'm writing books, I'm making videos, doing conferences and debates, I'm traveling the world, I'm starting a company to have a positive impact. And I think, and this is for me personally, right?
Yeah, of course.
Next step will be, since popular culture is really influenced by movies, because that's what people watch. So you've got, if for every person who reads a book, there are 20 who actually watch movies. So if you want to really have a big impact, policies and movies are the two ways.
Okay.
And so I may eventually, and actually creating a disruptive technology. So I think these are the three main ways. Of course, there are many ways you can do, but to have the biggest impact, a super disruptive technology, a change in policy in a country or even globally, at the United Nations or the European Union, or something like that. Or you make a movie that actually 100 million people watch, and they're like, okay, actually that actually gave me something that inspired me. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to give out, and to my colleagues, to people. So I was inspired by a lot of people, and they gave me the inspiration to do what I do. So if I can be of inspiration for others, then then that would be my goal. And the rest of the people, to say that they'll just become couch potatoes, I think that's bollocks, because we know that's not right. We know that it doesn't happen. People become couch potatoes exactly because they go to work on something they hate, and then they come back and they're exhausted and they have no energy to do something useful with their life. So they just go to the pub and have a drink, or just watch TV. I don't want to deal with that. Read a book. Oh man, I got 8-hour shift. Well, fuck you. So when people actually have time to do something, they do something interesting, and we know that because the Linux kernel exists, because we have 600 million works in the public domain or Creative Commons, because we know that that's not the case. These things were created through endeavors that people just felt that there is no way to keep people from doing something interesting except taking away their dignity and their time, which is what the current system is doing.
Yeah. So the most amazing technology that I know of that exists today is Google's self-driving cars. What do you think will be the next big thing?
Okay, yeah.
Just talk about
The next big thing is going to be the tricorder. The tricorder X Prize that was launched by Peter Diamandis a couple of years ago. Now Watson and others, the IBM team with Watson and others with other technologies, they are basically, the idea is to create the Star Trek tricorder. So a device like this one that you talk to, or you cough to, or you sneeze in, and you put your blood, and or you spit inside it, whatever. It diagnoses you better than a board of certified doctors. Actually, better than any certified doctor. So, and it works the same. I mean, it works just as well everywhere for everyone. So, a poor kid in Uganda has access to the best doctor in the world, just like the President of the United States. Just because once technology becomes available, it becomes democratized, and the cost just falls down. So, just like with cell phones, 30 years ago only the president could afford a cell phone. Now, you've got baskets with smartphones that cost $5 in Nigeria. And people have cell phones, but they don't have water. So imagine in 5 to 10 years, the tricorder is going to be available. There's going to be ubiquitous internet, ubiquitous connectivity, and anyone will be able to have diagnosis on the spot every second and have a complete checkup of their body and what should they do, what should they eat. And then there's a question, well, if they've got nothing to eat, what do they eat? But, there is another problem. But that's going to be, I think, the most disruptive thing ever. Because if you can diagnose anything, any time of the day, for every day, for free, that means most sicknesses, they just disappear. Because the reason we get cancer is because it develops in your body, and you don't know for 6 months or for a year, because, you don't diagnose your body, you don't do a full checkup maybe for a year or two, and then, oh gosh, I've got a cancer. But if you keep yourself checked every day, you can intervene immediately. So it's going to be huge.
The technological singularity is a hypothetical time in the future when robots or AI will become smart enough to create better versions of themselves, resulting in an unimaginably fast exponential advancement in technology. Do you believe this will happen? And if so, do you have a gut feel as to when?
Do I believe it will happen? I don't see any reason why it shouldn't happen, because it doesn't break any laws of physics or any laws of computability theory or calculability. So there is nothing against it. And all the indicators kind of show that, given this rapid advancement that we've experienced for 50 years in just computers, and actually more than 250 years with technology in general, that we have no reason to believe that we'll not keep up for at least another 100 years, right? Until we reach the femtoscale, after which it kind of becomes fuzzy and quantum mechanics kicks in. You're like, what's going on there? But up to that point, there is no reason to believe that technology cannot keep improving exponentially. And we need less than 100 years of exponential growth in technology to reach the point where machines become better performing than us. I wouldn't want to say smarter, because that's but better performing than us in basically every way that's possible, including designing better versions of themselves. So I think it's reasonable to I don't want to say assume, but to kind of expect that between 2045 and 2060 that might happen.
All right. So
so not so
40
years from now. That's not too far away.
Okay. The title of your first book suggests that there's going to be an economic collapse. Can you tell me why you think that'll happen?
I think we're already experiencing in some pockets of the world economic collapses. The Eurozone is record unemployment. Every country, almost every major, every big power has a huge debt. Some of the countries cannot even repay cannot even pay back the interest on the debt, let alone the debt. It's so staggeringly high. So the whole economic system is based on the fractional reserve system, the continuous growth of the money supply, and the application of interest on money that doesn't exist in the first place, which leads to a geometric progression of debt, which basically means that it can never be extinguished globally. It can be extinguished on a local level by stealing money and resources from other players, but it's unsustainable.
Okay.
Financially unsustainable, so monetary reform could fix that, but it's also ecologically unsustainable, and it's also, I think, unsustainable from the market point of view, because as technology progresses exponentially, so you have 3 different ways that, you know, converge towards a collapse. As technology advances exponentially, and automation, so robots and artificial intelligence and computers, they can perform much better than humans at ever more tasks. The ability of people to be educated in the new types of jobs that are being created by the new technologies is very limited, because it takes some time to adjust, but then technology becomes smart and it takes less time to, you know, become more productive there. And so every time you try to reach the new technology or the new type of job, technology kicks in again, because it builds upon itself, the latest version, and it's always faster and faster and faster and better and more intelligent and stronger and better performing and more accurate. So I think it's a lost battle, and eventually you've got so many people unemployed and the states are broke, so they cannot pay unemployment benefits to the people, and they're full in debt. So it becomes completely unsustainable.
Okay.
And that's why I think there's going to be a huge collapse.
What can we do to survive the economic collapse and be happy? Or do we have to read your book to find out?
Well, you can read my book also, because it's free on the website.
Yeah.
So there's one good reason. And or if you want to support my research, you can buy a copy and, you know, make me happy a little bit. But really, I think the idea is we cannot rely on big corporations to take care of us, because that's not happening. And governments seem to be really not fit for doing that, also because they are dependent on corporations, because that's where they get their money from in the end. So the whole system seems to be unable to provide for people. It does to a certain extent, but as a byproduct. It's not like the concern of corporations and the government is to care for its people. It should be like that, but it doesn't look like it's actually working. So what I think we should do is individuals and communities should find a way, using exponentially growing technologies that are becoming more cheaper, through open source and collaboration, to produce the things we need to survive at a much lower price in a more efficient way that we can share. Okay. So if I have a new way of producing food, if I invent a new way of producing food more efficiently, and I share that knowledge with the world, so the design, the techniques, the technologies that I'm using, the software that's attached to these technologies, if I make that open source, like Open Source Ecology is doing, and Transition Town and lots of other movements, then you can seriously start to think, and how can you be self-sustaining with the tools you have together with your friends and your community to produce food, water, energy, and, you know, shelter and houses and items that you need through open source technologies. They are becoming cheaper and cheaper by working actually not that much. So you don't have to go back to the way of living 200 years ago. You can actually provide open source ecology. The Marcin Jakubowski made a calculation that when the global village construction set is finished, people will be able to work less than 2 hours a day to provide for everything they need to have a high standard of living, and the rest of the day they can do whatever they want, which could be improving these technologies even more, or read a book, or take a walk in the park, or study quantum physics, or play violin, or spend time with your kids, or whatever you want to do. But I think instead of assuming that this is the only way the system can work, by being dependent on governments and corporations all the time for everything, we can start to think, wait a minute. And I say this because I know people, and I've lived, for instance, in the renewable energy park, a place where it's completely self-sustaining. It produces all the water, all the energy, most of the food. It could be producing all its food, and the Rocky Mountain Institute are doing the same. They're showing that this is actually possible. And if you add to that 3D printing, it's already a reality and it's improving every year, you get a sense of what's actually feasible.
Yeah.
Right? So.
The title of your new novel suggests that there are two possible futures. Can you explain why you think there could be a future that goes terribly wrong?
I believe there could be a future that goes terribly wrong because the propensity of people and of societies in general, and actually any system, is to follow the inertia, right? So you've got a huge inertia and you're just going with the flow. And if we go with the flow, we know where this is going. Closed source proprietary technology. They're going to put a cap on the internet, or they're going to build like firewalls, like the huge firewall of China, restrict access. They're already starting and trying to put DRM in 3D printers so that you cannot print certain things. You can only print other things that are, approved and bought from the 3D printing iTunes store of the future. Right? This is nonsense. But at the same time, you've got the RepRap project, the MakerBot. There are open source printers, 3D printers, and you've got open source software. You've got these two possibilities, right? I mean, I think the latest figure was that $500 billion is lost every year due to patent trolls.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, this is mind blowing. This is just people hired by companies to basically stifle innovation.
Yeah.
That is the only reason they exist. They don't actually produce anything of value. What they do is they acquire patents and copyrights, and then they sue everyone for everything. And people, even when they're right and they haven't actually committed any violation of copyright or patent law, and I'm purposefully not using the term intellectual property because I refuse to use that term because it doesn't mean anything. Even when they are right and they haven't, committed any crime, instead of going through the process, which will take millions spent in lawyers, if it's a case of patent, and hundreds of thousands if it's a case of copyright, they just pay whatever because they don't want to pay the whole fee for the lawyers. So this is nonsense. We got to stop this nonsense, stop this monstrosity, and move towards a open, transparent world. Because that's going to lead to so much. Everything's going to be so much better, coupled with the idea of sustainability. But if you go for the closed source, just keep producing conspicuous consumption, keep economic growth going, whatever the means, doesn't matter, then you're going to have lots of problems. And we've got this choice today. What we invent, what we do. I mean, you can support open source projects, you can use open source software, you can actually start open source projects and contribute to those, and you can spread the knowledge and contribute to society as a whole and try to be more sustainable. Or you can just go with the flow.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yes. Educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourself. Study, learn, find things out. Go to TED.com, go to Singularity, TED.com, Singularity University, Zeitgeist Movement, New Scientist. Like, read stuff that actually is good, not the fucking Daily Mail.
Okay, cool. Right, thanks.